3 years after I fled the country, Sebastian tracked me down. The moment I saw him, that familiar terror washed over me. A phantom pain throbbed where my scent gland used to be. 3 years ago, for the sake of Liam, Sebastian had my gland surgically removed and killed the unborn child in my belly. What did he want from me this time? When I encountered Sebastian again, I was in an exclusive lounge catering to alphas, kneeling on the floor wiping up spilled, expensive liquor. This bar hosted only the wealthiest and most powerful alphas, a place where they could unload their exhaustion and seek pleasure. And what was the entertainment? People like us, good-looking omegas. They radiated pheromones, hunting for an omega with a high compatibility rate for a night of romance. I had been here for 3 years. The owner, Steven, had hired me for my looks. Originally, I was supposed to be a top-tier companion, but since my gland was gone, I couldn't react to anyone's pheromones. I was useless as a partner. I faced termination. But because my appearance was truly exceptional and plenty of customers liked me just for that, I begged Steven to let me stay. He eventually agreed. The pay was high, and I needed every cent to save my father, who was also an omega. Even if customers touched me inappropriately or took advantage of me, it didn't matter. I was used to this life. When I looked up and saw those familiar brows on the sofa, I couldn't stop trembling. The fear etched in my memory, threatened to swallow me whole. The scar on my neck burned. The dim lighting behind him cast shadows across half his face, making him look like a demon from hell. I wanted to get up and run, but my legs turned to jelly, and I collapsed on the floor. Cold sweat drenched my back. He looked displeased. He lowered his foot, crushing my fingers against the floorboards. Tears streamed down my face instantly. So cheap. You ran all this way just to do this kind of work? Under his arrogant scrutiny, my love and my self-esteem were shattered by his powerful words. I knelt there in my wretched state, letting him trample me. When I didn't speak for a long time, he grabbed me by the collar, hauled me up, and threw me onto the spacious sofa. His voice was hoarse, his eyes full of contempt. You've been here 3 years. You must be very good at serving people by now. He leaned in close, biting down hard on my neck. My gland had long been removed for his true love, Liam. My body rejected his touch violently. I tried to dodge. Sensing my resistance, he let out a cold laugh. You used to love sleeping with me so much. I don't believe that now that I'm right in front of you, you can control yourself. He unleashed his pheromones. Inside, I felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. I almost wanted to laugh. Once an omega's gland is removed, they can no longer feel a shred of affection for their compatible alpha. In this lifetime, I would never love anyone again. Realizing my emotions remained untouched, he pulled back, looking at me with probing eyes. Come back to the States with me. It wasn't a question. My tone was firm. I'm not going back. Finding my resistance laughable, he slowly raised his head. Do you think you have a say? This isn't New York. You don't have that kind of power here. As soon as I said it, I laughed at my own stupidity. The massive bar had emptied in an instant. It was just me and Sebastian. The overhead lights made his hair shine with an intimidating luster. Do you still think I don't have the capability? Painful memories assaulted me. I won't go with you. Just kill me. He sneered again. I don't want your life, but your father's hospital bills. They must cost a fortune every year, right? In that moment, the pain I had buried for years resurfaced. I had only had 3 years of peace. Was I destined to never escape this torture? My heart turned to ash. The next day, Sebastian took me and my father back to the US. As the private jet climbed into the sky, I stared blankly at the clouds layering outside the window. Sebastian sat beside me, sipping a glass of red wine worth thousands. After we land, I'll find the best surgeon for your father. Seeing my silence, he grew irritated. Your father hit Liam with a car and cost him his gland. Spamming his life is already a mercy. He was only willing to believe Liam. He never believed my father. My dad never hit anyone. I wanted to scream the question at him. What if, from the very beginning 3 years ago, everything was a setup by your so-called soulmate? But I stayed silent. I knew it was useless. When he was carving out my gland, I begged him. I explained. He didn't listen to a single word. Seeing I wouldn't speak, he fell silent too. I sank into memories of the past. My dad was the driver for the Sterling family. He had driven for them for decades. I grew up in the Sterling estate alongside Sebastian. After puberty, his pheromones and my gland had a 100% compatibility rating. As an Omega, I uncontrollably fell in love with him. Couldn't help it. He had been the person I looked up to since childhood. Sebastian was groomed to be the heir. Academics, go horseback riding, violin, he excelled at everything. I always felt that if I worked hard enough, I could catch up to him. During his college rut, he pinned me against a wall, kissing me frantically. Finally, he slid down to my neck, biting my gland like a beast, injecting his marking pheromones into my body. I was forcibly marked. When the pain hit, tears filled my eyes. But amidst the pain was joy. I was one with the person I loved most. But he didn't love me. He combined with me only because of that perfect match rate, a statistic that occurred only once in 100,000 cases. Bowed by family pressure, we got married. Only highly compatible partners could produce the smartest, healthiest, highest quality heirs. Sebastian's alpha father liked me. Seeing us married was his dying wish. He had cancer, and even the newest medical treatments could only extend his life by 2 years. To let his father go in peace, Sebastian gave up his beloved Liam and married me. The Sterling family threw a grand wedding to bring good luck. On our wedding night, Sebastian took a phone call, told me, "Things are busy at the company," and left. He didn't come back all night. I didn't know then that the call was from Liam. And I didn't know that Sebastian didn't love me, that his heart belonged to Liam. For months later, I was pregnant. Sebastian's father was overjoyed, forcing himself to stay awake, hoping to see the child born. But regrettably, he didn't make it to my delivery date. He didn't even last the 2 years the doctors promised. When I was 6 months pregnant, he passed away. He died holding my hand, saying how sorry he was that he wouldn't see the baby in my belly. After the grief, life returned to a quiet rhythm. I never expected that an accident would completely destroy my life. When the baby was 9 months old, I was in the villa's courtyard with my dad, airing out baby clothes. Sebastian came home in a rage and kicked my father to the ground. He whipped out his belt and lashed him mercilessly. In this world, alphas have far more rights than omegas. My father didn't know what was happening, but he didn't dare fight back. Supporting my heavy belly, I rushed forward and grabbed Sebastian's hand. "What's wrong?" He turned his vicious words on me. "I never knew your heart was so poisonous. Liam never asked for anything from me, just a little bit of love. But your jealousy drove you to make your father run him over. You made him lose his gland." From his disjointed, furious shouting, I finally understood. My husband loved someone else, a man named Liam. And now Sebastian claimed my dad had hit him with a car. My father knelt on the ground, explaining over and over, "I didn't do it. I absolutely didn't." But Sebastian didn't believe him. He knocked my father down again and again until he was severely injured. I cried miserably, pulling at his arm. He ignored my pregnancy and shook me off violently. I fell to the ground, pain radiating from my stomach. I was terrified. Finally, exhausted from the beating, he left with a parting threat. "If Liam doesn't recover in the hospital, neither you nor your father will ever be well again." My father, ignoring his own injuries, struggled to help me up and get me to the hospital. Bad news, I was bleeding. Good news, the baby was fine. I let out a breath of relief, but I had to stay on bed rest. During the week I stayed in the hospital, I saw Liam. His skin was clean and pale, his features picturesque, his eyes deep and soulful. Even lying in a hospital bed in a gown, he had a certain charm. I finally knew why Sebastian liked him. He aroused a desire to protect. My looks were on the sharper, sexier side, the kind that makes people want to conquer, not coddle. Sebastian was gently feeding him chicken soup. When Liam fell asleep, Sebastian kissed his forehead softly. Standing outside the door, the bitterness in my heart could no longer be suppressed. I choked back tears and ran away. So he gave all that tenderness to someone else. If I had known before the marriage that Sebastian loved someone else, I never would have forced him. I would have gone far away. But now the child in my belly was almost due. What was I supposed to do? Leave? Get away from him? Get away from this city? The thought grew stronger until a month later I acted. On the day I tried to flee with my father, we were intercepted at the hotel. It was Liam's people. A dozen men tied me and my father up. They took us to the Sterling family's private surgical suite. Having lived in the Sterling household for so long, I knew of its existence, but no one could enter without Sebastian's permission. So, this kidnapping was sanctioned by Sebastian from the start. The realization hit me as the violent struggle sent waves of agony through my lower abdomen. I curled up into a ball. Liam laughed arrogantly. What to do? Sebastian says my gland is gone, so you have to pay me with yours. His words made my heart race dangerously fast. Suddenly, I felt wetness below. Panicked, I touched myself, bright red blood. I screamed, clutching his leg. Save me. Save my baby. Liam's eyes were full of mockery. Ignoring my begging, he ordered his men to drag me onto the operating table. My hands and feet were strapped down. I struggled violently. Stop struggling. He isn't coming to save you. He allowed me to take this from your body, Liam said, playing a voice message on his phone. Sebastian's clear voice drifted into my ears. Baby, as long as you're happy, I don't care what you do. Just don't kill anyone. Hearing those words, I fell into utter despair. I stopped fighting and quietly accepted the doctor's scalpel slicing into my neck. After the gland was removed, it felt like all the blood in my neck and lower body drained away. I fainted from the pain. Once an omega's gland is removed, if they don't die, they are permanently crippled. But in the end, the one who died wasn't me. It was my 9-month-old baby. The immense grief nearly drove me insane. My father was beaten into a disability by them as well. Later, I took him and fled abroad. I forced myself back from the painful memories. The hatred in my eyes hadn't diminished in the slightest. Sebastian noticed my gaze. The wine glass he was lifting to his lips paused. Perhaps he sensed the endless hate radiating from me. I didn't look away. I met his stare head-on. Don't look at me like that, he said, angry. Like what? You didn't used to look at me this way. I laughed. How was it before? Gentle? Deeply affectionate? Too bad. I don't love you anymore. All I have for you is deep hatred and disgust. Back then, you used me as a tool to please your father. You destroyed my life's happiness, killed my unborn child, and let your lover beat my father until he was bedridden. Only, now do I realize how truly repulsive you are. The plane landed. I carried my father off the jet. I didn't know why Sebastian brought us back, but my father and I were returned to the old house. Sebastian handed me the keys to the villa. As he was leaving, I asked, why bring me back? His eyes were full of love, but not for me. Liam and I are getting married soon, but we haven't processed the paperwork for us, so we can't register yet. I see. I sneered internally. And regarding the past, I feel somewhat guilty. Bringing you back is my compensation. The house was the same. The furniture hadn't changed. But the heart of the person living in it was entirely different. Exhausted from the ordeal, I settled my father in and went to bed. Before sleeping, I turned on my old phone from before I left the country. I saw a message from my senior, Spencer, an Omega doctor. I heard from Sebastian tonight that you're back. Why didn't you tell me? Is he giving you a hard time? Years ago, when I was nearly dying on the operating table, my father had taken my phone, scrolled through the contacts, saw Dr. Spencer, and dialed. Unexpectedly, Spencer actually came. He saved my life. If not for him, the grass on my grave would be tall by now. Spencer was not yet 30 but was already an associate chief of staff. His medical skills were brilliant. Spencer, he hasn't given me trouble. I had changed my number when I went abroad, so we had lost touch. I thought you wouldn't reply. I scrolled up. Sure. Enough, he had sent me holiday greetings every year for the past 3 years. Guilt pricked me, remembering how he saved my life. I replied immediately, Dr. Spencer, I'm sorry. I haven't touched this phone in 3 years abroad. It's good to disappear and heal in a new environment. I'm not blaming you. What are your plans now? I remember you studied dentistry. Do you want to work at my uncle's dental clinic? I started to type not for now, but then I deleted it. I urgently needed a job. Finding work in my specific field wasn't easy. Plus, Spencer came from a medical dynasty. An offer to work at his uncle's clinic was rare. I thought about it and replied, of course. Thank you so much. Don't mention it. I'm off tomorrow. I'll take you there. Okay. The next day, Spencer arrived at the meeting spot on time. He was dressed casually in a gray-blue tracksuit, his hair cut sharp and clean. His smile was incredibly sunny. On the passenger seat, there was a bouquet of flowers. For me? He chuckled lightly. Yeah. Do you like them? My lips curved up. How could I not? It was the first time anyone had ever given me flowers. Maybe omegas and alphas are born different. Alphas are born with leadership and rationality, while omegas tend to be gentler and more emotional. I went into the hospital with Spencer to meet his uncle, the director. Out of respect for his nephew, the arrangement went smoothly. I could start the following Monday as a resident dentist, with a very respectable salary. Just as we were walking out of the hospital, we ran into Sebastian accompanying Liam to the dentist. Sebastian wore a custom suit, his long arm wrapped around Liam's waist. Liam must have said something witty, because Sebastian was laughing heartily. What a coincidence. Every time I met Liam, it was in a hospital. Looking at that innocent face, the beast of hatred in my heart clawed to get out. The child that died in my womb was a pain etched into my soul forever. Sensing my gaze, Liam slowly looked up. The moment he saw me, shock filled his eyes. A moment later, he recovered and smirked at me provocatively. Sebastian followed his gaze and saw me. He immediately pulled Liam behind him protectively, his tone icy. What are you doing here? Spencer stepped in for me. He's here for a job interview. Sebastian looked at him with hostility. Sensing Spencer's omega pheromones, the glacial sharpness around him receded slightly. He frowned. Is the Sterling family lacking money? Do you need to go out and find a job? Once the paperwork is done, I won't have anything to do with the Sterling family. Even after the divorce, the Sterling family can still support you. I ignored him and walked away. I hadn't worked in my field for years, and I'd forgotten a lot. I worked during the day and studied late into the night. This went on for half a month. Then, I received a notice from Sebastian's assistant to handle the divorce papers. I took the day off, woke up early, and put on light makeup. In the mirror, my nose was high, my lips exquisite, my eyes enticing. I was still confident in my looks. I touched my red lips. Sebastian used to bite them during his ruts, whispering how kissable they were to bewitch me. Those memories made me scoff. Sebastian arrived a bit late. When he saw me, a flash of awe passed deep in his eyes. The procedure was quick. Perhaps my indifference stung him. When we walked out, he seemed unhappy. He leaned in, trying to hug me. I panicked and stumbled back several steps, nearly knocking over a pedestrian. You won't even give me a final hug? He looked hurt. To me, the current Sebastian was no different from trash on the roadside. I didn't answer and walked away. The house I lived in was a wedding gift from Sebastian's father. After the divorce, it officially became mine. That night, I helped the caregiver wipe down my father's body to help him sleep. That brutal beating years ago had ruined his health completely. Later, I lay in bed with the lamp on, reading dental journals. Sebastian kicked the door open, reeking of alcohol. His expression looked ready to devour me. He dragged me out of bed, my bare feet hitting the floor. He gripped my wrist without mercy. I couldn't break free. It hurt like hell. Anger rose in my chest. Sebastian, are you out of your mind? As an alpha, his strength far exceeded mine. His large hands pinned me against the wall. You used to love me so much. Why has it changed? He grabbed my neck and started biting my lips, swallowing the blood from the broken skin. Sensing my desperate resistance, he went crazier. He locked my hands, forcing me to face the wall, exposing the back of my neck. Ignoring my struggles, he bit down madly on the jagged scar where my gland used to be. The delicate gland was long gone. In the past, during my heat, our 100% compatibility made sex intense. Now, without the gland, I felt absolutely nothing for him. Feeling my body violently rejecting his pheromones, his eyes turned scarlet. Why do you feel nothing from my mark? Why? I sneered. Because my gland was removed by the love of your life. I will never love anyone again. The police arrived quickly. The noise had caused the caregiver to call them. In this world, the only effective protection for an omega against an alpha's overpowering force is the law. If there is zero compatibility, violence cannot be used to force submission. Otherwise, it's charged as sexual assault. The officer approached to confirm if I had been violated. Seeing me nod, they immediately subdued Sebastian and took him to the interrogation room. As the victim, I had to go too. Both parties had to be present for the statement. This gentleman broke into my home while drunk and used violence to coerce me into intimacy. As if he couldn't believe these words were coming from my mouth, Sebastian's eyes were bloodshot, his gaze dark and gloomy. You've really got some nerve now. What? Just this little bit is unbearable for you? When I was kidnapped by Liam, you said just don't kill anyone. You hurt me to the bone, deep into the marrow. Why should you get to be breezy and calm after putting me through hell? The real revenge is just beginning. I didn't love him anymore. A person who doesn't love has no weakness. Since the act wasn't consummated, the police recorded the incident and notified Sebastian's next of kin to pay a huge bail to get him out. Sebastian ended up calling Liam. The night wind was blowing outside. I brushed my hair back, feeling my head clear. Liam looked at me and Sebastian with a dark expression. I didn't care about their drama. I just wanted to leave. As I turned, my wrist was grabbed. I looked back, the smell of alcohol drifting into my nose with the wind. I looked at Sebastian in surprise. Mr. Sterling, is there something else? His gaze was obscure. Everything that happened back then. It's all because you were jealous of Liam and ordered your dad to hit him, costing him his gland. Otherwise, I wouldn't have treated you that way. You brought this on yourself. Brought this on myself. Ha! As long as Liam said it, Sebastian believed it without a doubt. I grew up with him. My dad drove for his family for a lifetime. Were we not worth a single ounce of trust? Only today did I fully realize that the man I admired in my youth was a complete idiot. Thinking of my dead child, a massive hatred threatened to consume me. I felt my reason burning away. I wanted to rush up and slap him across the face. In the end, I used all my strength to suppress my emotions, because the real game was just starting. I shook off his hand and walked away firmly, heading west. A few days later, news of the Sterling CEO's wedding was everywhere. I closed my phone and sat quietly at the airport, waiting for someone. Steven, an alpha, took off his sunglasses. His handsome face smiled at me. Hi, long time no see. It's only been a month. He wrapped his arm around my waist and gave me a big hug. Steven was the owner of the bar I worked at abroad. I stayed at that bar for 3 years for 2 reasons. One was the high pay. The other was that on the day of my interview, I saw a photo on the bar counter, a face etched into the deepest part of my soul. The Liam in the photo was smiling brightly. Hatred and curiosity about Liam made me stay. The Liam in the photo felt completely different from the Liam I had met. He must have had minor plastic surgery, but the mole at the corner of his eye was distinctive. I recognized him instantly. During those 3 years, I finally uncovered Liam's secret. Steven was Liam's ex-alpha boyfriend. After getting close to Steven, he accidentally spilled the beans one night when he was drunk. I've seen this man, I said. He grabbed my shirt, asking where. In my country. I showed him the photos I had secretly taken of Liam and Sebastian at the hospital. I knew it. He threw my phone to the ground in a rage. Later, I learned that they had dated for 2 years and planned to marry. Just when Steven entrusted everything to him, Liam set a trap, stole all his money, and ran. When Steven tried to track him down, he discovered that the name Liam was fake. All his identity documents were forged. He had planned the facial surgery and the escape. Liam meeting Sebastian was also a setup from the start. Liam's compatibility with Sebastian was too low. In this world, they were destined not to bond. That was why he engineered the theft of my gland. But this time, Liam didn't want money. He wanted Sebastian's life. Steven came back to take back what was his. Liam had stolen hundreds of millions from him. Over the years, my investigation into Liam went deeper, revealing a massive secret. Back at the hotel, when I laid all the evidence out in front of Steven, he was shocked. He's getting married soon. When? To whom? In a week. To my ex-husband, the Alpha. If this stuff ends up on the big screen at the wedding, imagine the waves it will make. I fell silent. Everyone has to pay for what they've done. The wedding was held in the royal gardens, surrounded by blooming flowers. The dining tables were inlaid with silver, the cutlery exquisite. Sebastian and Liam wore magnificent tuxedos. At the moment they gazed deeply into each other's eyes to exchange vows, the big screen flickered. Surveillance footage appeared. The date stamp was from 3 years ago. The person in the hospital bed was Sebastian's father. And the person injecting something into his foredrip was Liam. The camera was pointed directly at Liam's face, which was twisted with malice. The high-end hospital room's audio was crystal clear. You schemed to swallow our white family company and destroyed my family. Today, I finally kill my enemy. His eyes were like a venomous snake as he whispered into the old man's ear. The real game of revenge is just beginning. The white-haired old man trembled, struggled, and then breathed his last. The guests erupted in an uproar. It wasn't over. A photo of a surgery consent form appeared. It clearly stated, Alpha male voluntarily signing for gender reassignment surgery to Omega male. In the bottom right corner were Liam's signature and a red thumbprint. This surgery was illegal domestically because the failure rate was 99%. It was banned due to the high mortality rate and social instability. But abroad, it was permitted if you had the money. Cost tens of millions. Only the incredibly wealthy could afford it. Seeing this, Sebastian's face twisted into the rage of a lion. His aura became terrifying. He began to tremble. Something boiled in his veins, spreading through his body. Liam's face turned deathly pale, especially when he spotted Stephen in the crowd. Disregarding everything, he turned and bolted. It happened so fast that Sebastian, drowning in emotion, couldn't react in time. His chest heaved violently. His wide eyes filled with angry tears. The wedding was over. Liam had scammed Stephen and had plenty of money. He had also hired mercenaries when he kidnapped me. I handed all the evidence to Sebastian and took Stephen to meet him. Stephen told him everything. Liam wasn't a Lin. His surname was White. Sebastian's father had built his empire using ruthless methods, annexing his friend's company, the White family business. 15 years ago, the couple that jumped from the Silverlight skyscraper were Liam's fathers. Sebastian's father was the culprit. Liam changed his name and spent a fortune abroad to change his biology from Alpha to Omega. As a bankrupt young master, he had no money and borrowed from loan sharks. He had to work in that bar to pay the interest. Finally, he targeted Stephen and conned him out of his fortune. Returning to the country, his new Omega identity allowed him to get close to Sebastian. But I had already bonded with Sebastian, and our compatibility was too high. The Sterling family forced Sebastian to marry me. When I got pregnant, Liam felt I was blocking his path to revenge. Also, his compatibility with Sebastian was too low to conceive naturally. So he targeted me. A car accident that never happened dragged me and my father into hell. In our country, Omegas have almost no inheritance rights. If something happened to Sebastian, the Sterling assets would go to the extended family. Liam would get nothing unless he had a child. With my gland implanted, he could bond with Sebastian, have a child, and then arrange a sudden accident to kill Sebastian. The entire Sterling empire would fall into his hands. Hearing this, Sebastian's hands shook uncontrollably. He was enduring immense pain, suppressing an explosion of rage. Liam was smart. For 3 days, no surveillance cameras picked up a trace of him. The Sterling family was furious. They had significant political influence. Even though Liam seemed to have vanished like a stone in the ocean, he couldn't escape this time. I was at the hospital peeling an apple when I got the call from the caregiver. The sudden ring made me jump. The knife slipped, slicing my finger. Blood dripped onto the floor. Sir, the caregiver panted on the other end, your father is missing. I went out to buy groceries, and when I came back, the bed was empty. My heart hammered against my ribs. Just then, I received a text from an unknown number. I think you can guess who I am. I have your father. Tell Sebastian to let me go, and I'll spare his life. Seeing the message, I almost fainted. It was Liam. It felt like a giant stone was crushing my chest. My jaw trembled. I tried to calm myself and dialed Sebastian with shaking hands. Liam took my dad. He says let him go or he kills him. This time, Sebastian finally stood with me. Agree to all his conditions. A moment later, Liam texted demanding a private jet to leave the country. Sebastian agreed and sent me the location of the plane. As soon as we arrived, Liam appeared with my father. My father was in a wheelchair. Seeing me, his eyes lit up. Tears burst from my eyes. Dad, don't cry. Even though his body was failing, he tried to comfort me. As Liam boarded the plane with 4 or 5 mercenaries, he shoved my father, wheelchair and all, off the ramp. With a scream, I threw myself toward my father, who lay in a pool of blood. My heart felt like it was suffocating. Blood filled my father's mouth. He reached up, wiping the tears from my eyes. "Don't be sad. My Julian is all grown up. Dad has been lying in bed for 3 years. I've had enough. I don't want to lie there anymore. I'm going to find your alpha father. He left me forever." I collapsed on his body, wailing, crying out all the grievances of the past years. In that moment, my world collapsed. The plane was sabotaged. It taxied a few hundred meters but couldn't take off. Sebastian captured Liam and threw him into the Sterling family dungeon. Since Liam had altered his alpha identity, he wasn't protected by domestic law. That meant any method of torture could be used on him. As if trying to please me, Sebastian took me to see Liam, who was being tortured. The air was thick with the smell of blood. His limbs were nailed to a post. His lower body was a bloody mess. A mass of flesh had fallen to the ground. It seemed Liam really was pregnant. Seeing us enter, the panic in his eyes revealed a despair he couldn't hide. He curled his emaciated body, coughing violently, shaking uncontrollably. The scene that followed was even gorier. They skillfully amputated his limbs, leaving only his torso and head. Then, they applied potent healing medicine to the wounds. They put him in a large jar. At first, he had the strength to scream. Later, only weak moans remained. The hatred in my memories slowly dissipated in the face of such a gruesome scene. I walked out. The wedding video caused rival families to attack the Sterling Corporation online regarding the takeover of the White family years ago. For 3 months, Sterling stocks plummeted. Sebastian was buried in work. My life returned to normal. I went from a resident to a full-time dentist. After 3 months of effort, the Sterling family stocks finally stabilized. My house began to fill up with flowers, expensive jewelry, and luxury bags, all sent daily by Sebastian's assistant. I barely glanced at them. I piled them all in the corner, where they gathered dust. The caregiver muttered about the waste. Such childish behavior made me scoff. People's hearts change so quickly. I remembered the night before our wedding. Sebastian had brought me some leftover crabs from a banquet because he thought they tasted good. I was moved for a long time. But now, things far more expensive than those crabs were in front of me, and I felt nothing but disgust. Sebastian's attempts to woo me became crazier. He even sent me photos of Liam in the jar. On the back of the photo, he wrote, "I just want my baby to be happy." I suppressed the nausea rising in my throat. A month later, he started showing up at the hospital every few days to make public declarations of love. I got fed up. I slapped him hard across the face. "Sebastian, if you keep harassing me, I'm calling the police." He had paid a huge fine for the assault last time. With a record, he'd face real jail time now. For a CEO, prison wouldn't sound good. My disgust was written all over my face. Hearing this, Sebastian looked like he wanted to swallow me whole. His emotions were a complex mess, his eyes red. In front of everyone, he knelt on the ground. "I was a bastard before. I wronged you. Give me one chance, please. I'm begging you." I looked at the man groveling at my feet, the man who used to be so arrogant. "Sebastian, are you crazy? I will never love anyone again." I pulled my collar down, exposing the hideous scar on my neck. "I have no gland. You let the love of your life cut it out. Once an omega loses their gland, they never love an alpha again." Seeing the scar, he looked frantic. "I'll cut Liam's out and give it to you." I laughed out loud. Gland transplants are deadly enough. Mine would be a second transplant. The rejection would be worse. Should I risk my life for you? "Sebastian, we are done. You truly disgust me. You knew my baby was only a month away from being born. You killed him, and you killed my father. Sebastian, you make me sick. Actually, you don't love anyone. You only love yourself." The tear-streaked man in front of me was no longer the spirited, handsome youth of my memories. My final words were like a dull knife slowly driving into his heart. "To me, you are no different from garbage. Delayed affection is cheaper than grass." A metallic taste rose in Sebastian's throat. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. He wiped it away, staring at the red stain on his hand. Finally, he closed his eyes in sorrow. Later, Sebastian buried himself in his work. He never touched another Omega again. The media claimed the Sterling CEO was devoted to one person. But none of that had anything to do with me. Spencer took me out to dinner every few days. Since we were both Omegas and he had saved me, I didn't resist him. In fact, I felt close to him. Finally, one night at his place, we drank a little too much. His eyes burned as he looked at me. He leaned in and kissed my ear. The sensitivity sent a shiver through me, and a moan escaped my lips. I've liked you since college. But being an Omega, I never dared to tell you. Strangely, my body didn't reject his touch. It felt comfortable. I got together with Spencer. He drove me to and from work every day. We planted flowers and raised a cat. He was a great cook. In just 1 month, I gained 10 pounds. At night, he would rub the soft flesh of my waist affectionately. In this world, unions between two Omegas weren't protected by law, but they weren't forbidden either. Such unique couples existed here and there. Meeting a good man again, I was happy.